Welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at how AI could, well, shake up the world of textile design.
Definitely a hot topic.
We received a listener request to check out Imagine, and
Imagine.
yeah, it's a project proposal from, from a Turkish company called AIT.
Okay, I know ALT. They've been around, right?
Yeah, they've got a pretty impressive track record, actually.
What, in textiles specifically?
Yeah, they've been big in digital textile printing since, like, the 90s. Since 96, I think.
Oh, wow. So they've seen some changes.
Right, so this isn't some fly-by-night operation.
Mm.
Anyway, their proposal, they're aiming to develop AI that can come up with, like, completely unique textile patterns.
Okay, like algorithmically generated.
Yeah, exactly. Based on, get the simple text prompts and reference images.
Yeah.
You basically tell the AI what you're going for, show it a few examples, and boom, you've got a library of original designs.
And this is Imagine, you said.
That's the name of the project.
Okay, so what's the thinking behind it? Why now?
Well, from what I gather, it all comes down to the current state of, textile design.
Because it's an industry that's ripe for disruption.
I think so, because it's a lot more manual and time-consuming than people realize. Like those intricate patterns you see everywhere, a lot of times that's designers literally hand-drawing them.
No way. Still.
Yeah, facing tight deadlines, pressure to innovate. It can really stifle creativity, AIT estimates that the average designer over their entire career might only work with, like, 5,000 patterns.
Oh, really? Only 5,000.
That's their estimate, yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes sense when you think about how much repetition we see in the market.
So it's like this self-fulfilling thing. Designers are limited by what they've been exposed to, and the industry just keeps churning out the same old patterns.
Exactly. So you end up with these super talented designers stuck in this cycle of, churning out patterns they maybe wouldn't if they had more tools, more options at their disposal.
So AIT wants to, like, break the cycle.
Exactly. Imagine aims to give designers a tool to work faster, think bigger, and break free from those limitations.
Okay, color me intrigued, but I'm having a little trouble picturing it. How does it actually work, this Imagine system? Walk me through it.
Basically, from what I understand, it's all about feeding the AI a creative brief, in a way. You give a text prompt describing the style you're going for. Think like geometric patterns inspired by vintage wallpaper, something like that.
So pretty specific, like you're talking to a human designer.
Right. And then, to give it a little visual guidance, you'd show it some reference images, like, say, a cool pattern from a 70s interior design magazine.
So it's like giving the AI a mood board, kind of.
Exactly. And based on those two inputs, the AI would, in theory, generate a whole bunch of unique pattern variations, all riffing on that 70s vibe.
Wow. Okay, so it can take a concept like that, like a 70s vibe, and turn it into something visual.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Of course, the big question is, how does it actually work? Like, how does an AI understand something as abstract as you said, a 70s vibe?
Yeah, because that's not exactly something you can code, right?
Right. And that's where the really clever bit of AI engineering comes in. AIT is using not one, not two, but 3 different AI models.
Oh, okay. So it's like a multi-pronged approach. What are the models?
Variational autoencoders, those are called VAEs for short. We've also got text encoders, and then last but not least, diffusion models.
Okay, those are some pretty dense technical terms. Can we break them down a bit? Like, for the average person who hasn't gone to AI school.
Sure, yeah. Imagine you're, let's say, teaching a kid to paint. The first thing they need to learn is, like, what are colors? How do you mix them? How do you, like, actually make a brushstroke?
The very basics.
Exactly. And that's kind of what the VAE does for the AI. It's like the foundational learning stage.
Okay, so the VAE teaches it the ABCs of patterns, so to speak.
You got it. Then let's say you want that kid to paint something specific, like a sunset. How do you explain that? Well, you use words, right?
You describe it.
Right, and that's where the text encoder comes in. It takes those descriptive words and, like, geometric, vintage, whatever it might be.
And it turns them into something the AI can actually work with.
Exactly. It bridges that gap between human language and AI understanding. Pretty wild, right?
That is wild. Okay, I think I'm starting to get it, but what about the third one, the diffusion models? What do they do?
So we've got the AI understanding the basics of patterns. We've got it understanding language. The diffusion model is where it all comes together.
Like, that's where the magic happens.
Exactly. That's the model that actually takes everything it's learned and uses it to generate those fresh original patterns.
Okay, and how does it do that? I mean, is it just copying what it's seen before, or?
That's the thing. It's not just copying. It's like, if you can imagine taking all those little bits of inspiration, the style keywords, the reference images, and then remixing them in a way that a human designer might never think to do.
So it's actually creating something new, not just regurgitating.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And get this, AIT plans to train this AI on a massive data set of textile patterns. Like, think thousands upon thousands of designs spanning different cultures, different eras.
So it's like sending this AI to design school.
Exactly. They want to make sure it has a deep understanding of the history and evolution of textile design.
It's like they're trying to create an AI with real taste.
Right. I mean, we're talking about an AI that could potentially understand things like, cultural influences on patterns, historical context. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is. So they're like feeding it a feast of visual information, but then also teaching it how to actually understand and interpret that information.
And that's what makes this project so fascinating, right? It's not just about, can we make an AI that spits out pretty patterns? It's about, can we make an AI that understands the nuances of design in a way that we as humans do? And if they can pull it off.
It could be huge.
So we've got this AI soaking up patterns like a sponge. But how does it benefit, the people actually making and using these textiles?
Well, for starters, the time saved could be huge. We're talking about designs generated in seconds, maybe minutes, tops.
As opposed to
days, even weeks sometimes, for human designers.
Wow. Okay. So it's a massive speed boost for the whole design process. What's the ripple effect there?
Think about it. Quicker turnaround times, faster response to trends, and the cost savings, that's huge, too.
I bet. Time is money, after all.
Exactly. AIT estimates companies pay, on average, like $50 a pop for a new pattern. Some companies are buying hundreds every single year.
Yeah, that adds up fast.
This AI could save them thousands, tens of thousands, potentially, every year, just by cutting out the manual design work.
Music to any CFO's ears. But what about the designers themselves? Are we, automating their jobs away?
It's not about replacement. Think of it more like collaboration.
Okay, so the AI is more like a really advanced design assistant.
Exactly. It handles the tedious stuff, the repetitive patterns, the variations. It frees up designers to focus on the big picture.
So more time for inspiration, for exploring new ideas.
Exactly. Which ultimately leads to better design.
I like that. It's not AI versus humans. It's like, how can we use this technology to help us be more creative?
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And AIT seems really committed to that vision. They're not trying to put designers out of a job.
That's good to hear. So it's all roses this, right? This AI is going to swoop in, revolutionize fashion. Everyone's happy.
Well, not so fast. Even the smartest AI needs, good food to thrive, right?
What do you mean?
Data. Training an AI to be this creative requires a ton of it. And it can't just be any old data. It's got to be high quality, diverse. Otherwise,
We're just teaching the AI to make the same old patterns we've already got.
Right. And nobody wants that. So AIT has to be really careful about how they build their data set.
How do they plan on doing that? Where are they getting all this data from?
They're talking about partnering with museums, textile archives, maybe even individual designers. They need to make sure the AI is learning from the best.
And from a range of sources, too.
Yeah.
Different styles, different cultures, different historical periods.
It's like building a global design library for this AI to learn from.
So assuming they can pull that off, that they can train this AI on a data set that's both massive and diverse, then what? Where does AIT go from there?
Well, according to their proposal, they're starting with their existing clients, textile companies, design studios,
Makes sense. Test the waters, work out the kinks.
Right. And then they're hoping to expand it out, make it available to, basically anyone who wants to use it.
So we could see this technology everywhere,
Yeah.
from high-end fashion houses to your local Etsy shop.
Potentially, yeah. And that's what's so exciting about it. It has the potential to really democratize design.
I'm curious, with all this talk about AI, about algorithms, about data, what does this actually mean for the clothes we wear, for the fabrics we see in stores?
Well, imagine this. You walk into your favorite store, and instead of the same old patterns, you see this explosion of creativity.
Like totally unique, one-of-a-kind stuff.
Exactly. Designs that maybe wouldn't have been possible without AI, or at least not at this scale.
So it's not just about efficiency, it's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible in textile design.
Exactly. And maybe even personalizing it. Imagine that.
Personalized patterns, what designed just for me.
That's the idea. You could tell the AI what you want, show it some examples, and boom, it generates a pattern that's uniquely you.
We've talked a lot about the big picture stuff, how this AI could change the industry, faster turnaround times, all that. But what about the actual stuff we wear? How would this impact the clothes in our closets.
Well, think about it this way. Right now, you walk into a store and you see a lot of the same
Oh,
patterns.
right.
But
Yeah, definitely some repeats out there.
with AI, suddenly you could have so much more variety. Like imagine walking into a store and every single pattern feels unique.
Okay, yeah, I'm picturing it. No more seeing my shirt on someone else at the grocery store. But, like, how realistic is that?
It could be very realistic because this AI isn't just churning out patterns, it's learning how to design. So the patterns it comes up with, they're going to be original, fresh, things we haven't seen before.
So it's not just about quantity. It's about the AI actually being creative.
Exactly. And on top of that, imagine personalized patterns.
Hold on, what does that mean?
Like you could literally work with the AI to create a pattern that's designed just for you, based on your style, your preferences, all of that.
Okay, now that is next level.
That-
Let's step back for a second. This all sounds amazing, but it also sounds pretty futuristic. Like, is this really going to happen?
That's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, but what we do have is a company with a solid track record. And they're putting forward a plan that's, pretty ambitious, but it's also grounded in, like, what AI can actually do.
They're not just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks.
Right. They've got the expertise, they've clearly done their homework, and they're thinking about the ethical implications, too.
Which is huge. Because, I mean, AI comes with a lot of baggage.
Definitely. But I think what's exciting here is that they're not just talking about, like, optimizing for profit. They're talking about using AI to empower designers to give consumers more choices, to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Okay, yeah. When you put it that way, it's pretty inspiring. So if AIT can pull this off, what are we left with? What's the takeaway for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the world of design, of fashion, of how we express ourselves through what we wear, it's about to get a whole lot more interesting.
A whole lot more interesting and maybe a whole lot more you.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the technology, right? It's about what we do with it.
Beautifully said. And that wraps up our deep dive into Imagine.
A big thanks to all our listeners for sending in your requests.
Keep them coming. We'll be back next week with another deep dive into, whatever's blowing up the internet. See you then.